Hi everybody, Melanie here, welcome back to my channel. So, in continuing with the series that I'm making of videos to help you with moving on, I want to talk about the 5 stages of grief and loss. So this was initially put by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She wrote a book where initially it was intended for people who are terminally ill, and it was describing the emotions experienced by terminally ill patients and their families, and it actually is really helpful for grieving a relationship, because whilst there's not a literal death, there is still nonetheless death of what could have been. The ending of the relationship. It requires grieving that all the possibilities that you thought of at the beginning, when you thought this is it, amazing things are going to happen, when we get caught up in the fantasy of what it could be, and now the relationship is over. Remember at the start of the relationship when it was great, when there was all possibilities over there right in front of you, the relationship had potential, and now it's over. And it's hard to let go of that. We want to go back to how it was. We want our ex to go back to how they were initially. Now, bear in mind that in every relationship, there's always going to be a honeymoon phase. That honeymoon phase is called that because we experience a cocktail of neurotransmitters and hormones like oxytocin, for example, huge rushes of dopamine, serotonin levels are heightened, lots of endorphins running, and as a result we feel elevated, we feel euphoric. This is amazing. But every single relationship, all relationships, this honeymoon period will die down a bit, and it has to be, the relationship needs to stabilize. We can't keep running around like fools in love and being obsessed and caught up with the person we've fallen for. We're meant to have this honeymoon period, and then it calms down and it stabilizes. But at the end of a relationship, it's quite natural and normal to long for the early days during the honeymoon period, because to accept that the relationship is over, it's very painful when it's ended in such a way that it hurts to accept it. And so it's easier to reminisce about how good it used to be, because it's soothing, it's comforting. People often ask me, how long will it take for me to move on from my partner? And I say, well, how long is a piece of string? I can't give you an approximate time. It depends on your willingness to go through these stages, your willingness to accept that it's over. What I can say is that understanding the different stages of grieving and loss can really help you in moving on from this, because it gives you markers. It shows you how far you've progressed. So the first stage is shock and denial. Disbelief that this is over, being in shock that it's over. Now, if this has been a relationship but there's been many breakups, get back together, many breakups, with each time this happens, it can actually help with the shock, I guess. With each time it gets less and less shocking. At least I know from my past BPD relationship this was the case. But that doesn't mean to say that the denial isn't more real when it finally is over. And it's easy to get stuck in denial, to think, no, maybe it's not over yet. Maybe my ex still really does care about me. Looking at your phone, waiting for them to message you, going on social media and seeing what they're up to, not really accepting that this is over. It takes a while to come out of denial. It's quite painful to come out of denial. It's easier to reminisce about the past, to think about how good it used to be, that it can get back to how it used to be. This is denial. And if you think that the relationship can go back to how it used to be, let me ask you this. Do you trust your ex? What they've done, what you've done? Can either of you trust each other now? Can you go back out with someone who you don't trust? Can you trust that this person's not going to hurt you? If this is a relationship in which you're breaking up, getting back together again, breaking up, what's going to change this time that means that this person's not going to break up with you? The thing is, you can't guarantee this. No one can guarantee that they're going to stay with you forever. Even in marriage, there's still no guarantee, let alone a dysfunctional relationship. You have to look within yourself and truly ask yourself, can I trust this person? Will it actually go back to how it used to be? And bear in mind what I said at the beginning of the video, the honeymoon phase, everything's amazing. I personally don't think you can go back to that honeymoon phase, to that initial phase where everything was amazing. Because at this point, you're still learning about each other. Everyone's showing their best sides. It's a bit like a job interview when you start dating someone. You just say and only show the good sides of yourself. And you really like this person, you're attracted to them, you want them to be the perfect person. And so you see what you want to see sometimes. And after a while, you see them as human, you see them with all their flaws. And it comes back down to earth. The relationship becomes more stable, more grounded, more realistic. With everything that's happened, can it go back to how it used to be? So stage 1, which was shock and denial, eventually it moves on to stage 2, which is bargaining. Bargaining is, maybe if I do this or that, then this person will want to go back out with me again. Maybe if I give them space and time, we'll become friends again, and things will work out. Maybe if I work on myself or lose weight or do all the things that my ex wished that I had done, maybe if I do it now, they'll get back in contact with me. These are all examples of bargaining, which to an extent is partly rooted in denial. Do you think that this will work? If this is a relationship in which you're broken up many times and it tends to be around the same thing, for example, if there's been an issue of jealousy and it keeps coming up, do you think that you making changes now will stop your ex from being jealous? Or are they just jealous people and they're looking for excuses? Because it will drive you crazy constantly trying to change yourself in order to placate and to hopefully make the ex fall back in love with you again. Maybe you think, if I change things, if I do this or that, if I change myself, if I literally do whatever they want, they will take me back. If you do this, it shows that you're willing to change yourself just to please someone else. Is it going to be enough? What's not to say that they will change their minds? What's not to say that they will lose respect for you because you're now so compliant, so willing to throw your life away to please them? Doesn't necessarily mean you bargaining is going to get the relationship back. And you know what? I could be wrong. Maybe this is just the first breakup. Maybe you did something wrong. Maybe they did something wrong and you think, okay, well, why don't we have time apart to make amends, to make reparations? This is how shame works. Sometimes we need to feel guilty or we need to feel ashamed to motivate us to make reparations. Maybe that will help. I don't know. You know what? All relationships are different, but you need to ask yourself, is this really going to work? Sometimes it takes getting back with them again, maybe a second time, and you've made the changes and you realize that it's just not going to work. The same issue is still persisting. And so when you've realized that bargaining just isn't working anymore, when the denial finally wears off, and then we move on to stage 3, which is depression. Feeling depressed because it's just hit you. They're not coming back into your life anymore. It's not going to happen. And it feels horrible. It feels terrible. It means we can turn to drinking just to numb out these painful feelings. It means we start to neglect ourselves. Because the thing about depression is that it robs us of motivation, robs us of energy. We find ourselves just slumped in front of the TV, just lying in bed and sleeping all day, not wanting to eat, not wanting to talk to anyone, becoming a recluse. Now, if this was a relationship with someone dysfunctional, then it's going to hit you even more because it feels like a form of PTSD coming out of a relationship with someone personality disordered. And in this stage, the stage of depression, is when it all really hits home how hard it is and how hard it was during the relationship. I've made a previous video in which I go into further detail about why it hurts so much more once the relationship is over, because now you're in a safe place to really fully understand and realize the scope of all the pain that you've been through. And this is actually a necessary stage, to realize that you've been under so much stress, that you experienced a lot of pain, maybe even abuse. It's necessary for us to realize this, to bring us out of denial, to stop us bargaining, to let go of the need to bargain, to accept that, you know what, you were in pain, you were mistreated, and maybe you were mistreating your partner as well. The realization of that is very painful, but it is a necessary stage. It's a necessary step because it breaks the spell of wishing that we can get back with them, or thinking that we can get back with them. But we can't stay in this stage forever. What we need is that surge of energy to bring us out of depression, to bring us out of inertia, and it normally comes through anger, which brings us on to the next stage, the fourth stage, which is anger. Anger at, why did I let this happen? Anger at your ex for all the things that he or she did. Now, I've made a video about anger before. In fact, the previous video I talk about how you can work with anger. It's an activating, energizing emotion to get us out of depression. But the problem is that if we become too fixated on it, it can destroy us, as well as destroying the person who you're angry about. So the best way to work with anger is to understand that perhaps deep down you are angry at yourself. It's yourself for allowing this to happen for too long. Anger at yourself for falling for someone who wasn't good for you. Whatever the anger is, when we realize that deep down we're actually angry at ourselves the most, we can work with this, because then you can transform it into anger at self-betrayal, at betraying yourself, for you not living as your authentic self, but instead living as your adaptive self, the part of you that was placating, perhaps the part of you that would lash out and hurt too much, the part of you that wasn't really how you want to be in life. And that's okay. Anger at self-betrayal means that we are motivated to be the version of ourselves that we want to be. The good thing about this, shifting from neurotic anger to existential anger, as I mentioned in my previous video, is that this gives us the motivation to finally work on ourselves. Love ourselves. If you found that in your relationship that you neglected yourself, you put your hobbies, your friends to one side, now your whole life to one side, and the relationship didn't work out, and you feel, oh, what happened? I ignored my friends. I used to be good at playing guitar, and that went to one side. I've neglected all my hobbies. My work suffered from it. I'm unhealthy. Whatever it is, now we can think, all right, I'm going to make a change now. I'm going to work on my health. I'm going to get back into my hobbies that used to bring me joy, and get back in contact with friends who love me and I haven't seen in a while, to make reparations on relationships that have become impaired as a result of this relationship that you've just finished. And the great thing about this is that it boosts your self-esteem. When you start working on yourself again, when you set out to complete projects, when you improve on your skills, especially if this is something that you can do on a daily basis, every time you find yourself improving in your skills again, this gives you more self-esteem and gives you more confidence. And this really helps with moving on and speeding things along. You boosting your self-esteem, you coming back to yourself, learning to love yourself again, becoming more assertive maybe learning to say no, and live life according to your authentic needs. This is so powerful and really, really helps. And you find that this gets you into the final stage, stage number 5, that is acceptance. Accepting that the relationship is over, but you've learned so much from this. You've learned about yourself. With every relationship, even the worst relationship, they provide opportunities for us to improve on ourselves. They are all lessons for us we can either keep ignoring the lessons and find ourselves repeatedly in similar relationships, or we can choose to listen to what these lessons have to offer, these opportunities for growth, to improve ourselves. If you find that you're attracting people who just kept walking all over you, and you think, okay, do I keep putting my needs aside to make someone happy? If you can relate to being the kind of person that when you like someone, you become overly attached, you become a bit possessive, you're messaging them a lot, you always want to see them, you put your friends and all your hobbies to one side and just focus on worshipping this one person, this is a recipe for disaster, because a mentally stable person, someone who's quite mentally healthy, will be put off by this. It's too much. People who will lap this up will be personality disordered people. They want people to worship them. They want people who don't have healthy boundaries. They want people who are willing to put their life to one side so that you can attend to them day or night. And then they'll get bored of you, and they'll get sick of you, and they'll move on. And then there's you, who becomes more and more broken after each time this happens. So what's the opportunity here? What's the lesson here? How about loving yourself, finding the love that you're seeking, finding the validation that you're seeking from others within yourself, looking within yourself. Maybe now is an opportunity for you to think, why am I seeking approval and validation from others? Is this something that is from my past, from my history? Did I have a parent who was telling me I'm not good enough, that I will only be loved if I did things on their terms? Sometimes it takes having a really dysfunctional relationship to realize that, oh wow, this is what's going on in my head. I can't keep going like this. In fact, I think I need to change my inner talk, to really assess how you talk to yourself, how you self-deprecate, to realize, is this actually me, or is this my mum or dad or sisters or brothers from the past? This is cleaning your superego, and this is you changing how you talk to yourself so that you can give yourself the validation that you so need, the approval, for you to judge your sense of worth based on your standards and not on other people's standards. You see, all these lessons can come from a really dysfunctional relationship. In my past video, I said my enemies have been my greatest teachers for this exact reason. This can really help get to the stage of acceptance. So, the final stage of acceptance, accepting what is, surrendering to what is. It's very freeing. It takes a load off. And you can get there, but you have to be willing to get there. A lot of people get stuck in the first two stages because they still hope that there's hope for the relationship. And it doesn't help if your ex is a kind of person that likes to get in contact with you out of the blue. So maybe sometimes it's good to block that person so it can help you move along further down the stages. Or if you're co-parenting and you can't block this person, or you're working with them, to force yourself to treat this like an addiction, to force yourself to stop thinking, stop dwelling about this person. But again, I could give you tips about how to force yourself to stop thinking, but this has to come from a desire, your intent to want to stop doing this, to see this as an addictive behavior, you focusing and dwelling and ruminating about your ex, about the relationship. It's understandable why we ruminate and dwell, but there's going to be a point where we have to stop and let it go. Right, so that's just my thoughts, my advice for the day, and share with you what you think in the comments below. If you can relate and you're suffering, you're stuck maybe in one of these stages, you're really finding it hard to properly grieve the relationship. And you know what? If it was with someone dysfunctional, like I said, it doesn't help they keep getting back in contact. Sometimes it helps to understand that them wanting to be in contact with you may not necessarily mean that they want to get back into a relationship with you. They want to know if you'll still respond. So If you need some help with this, drop me an email. My email address is in the description box below. I look forward to hearing from you, and take care for now. Bye-bye.